Hey guys, so today I'm making a video of my top 15 wrestlers of all time. I basically started out watching wrestling in the late 80s, guys like Hogan, Savage and the Warrior, guys like that. Moved on into WCW, mid to late 90s, and onto WWE as it is today. So there's been like a ton of changes over that time, and basically these are my favourite wrestlers, guys who I think are pretty awesome in the ring. Pretty awesome wrestling personalities, and basically there's mainly sort of old school guys on my list, I suppose. Had guys like Orton and Rollins and a few of the newer breed. It almost made this list but not quite, so it's more of the old school list of wrestlers, you might say. But anyway, here we go. Hope you guys like it. If you do, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Cheers. So at number 15 we have Rey Mysterio, one of my favourites. The stuff that this guy can do in the ring is just absolutely unreal. A real groundbreaker in the sport of professional wrestling. If you've never seen this guy in action back in the late 90s in WCW in the Cruiserweight division, definitely check that out on the WWE Network. This guy is absolutely amazing in the ring. That match that he had with Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc at 1997 is just a perfect example of how awesome this guy is to watch in the ring. So much fun, a real excitement machine. And as of this recording, of course, he is back on SmackDown, still just as good as he always was. Still pulling off great matches. So that's my number 15, Rey Mysterio. And at number 14, I have Bret the Hitman Hart, the master of the sharpshooter, the guy that got screwed over in 1997 at the Montreal Screwjob. But this guy really is the excellence of execution. Very technically proficient in the ring. His matches were always solid. He had some great matches. And just a cool character. Of course, starting off in the Hart Foundation with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Really helped hold up the WWE in the mid-90s with Shawn Michaels when the company was really struggling. He became a real major player then. And that's my number 14, Bret the Hitman Hart. And my number 13 is none other than The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson as many may know him as. Now he has become such a big movie star after leaving the WWE. The Rock really claimed his fame in the WWE in those late 90s and early 2000s when he was just untouchable along with Stone Cold Steve Austin. With an absolutely electric personality and awesome mic skills, The Rock was arguably just as good out of the ring, talking in other words, as he was in the ring wrestling. Just the complete all-around performer, and now of course has his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. What more can you say about The Rock? And we're just talking about him, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he is my number 12. He and The Rock were huge in the WWE in the late 90s and early 2000s, and Stone Cold, just like The Rock, was just as good out of the ring on the mic talking as he was in the ring. And of course he went on to do some movies in Hollywood as well. But this guy almost single-handedly brought the WWE out of its shell and helped them overtake the WCW back at the time when it looked like the WCW was going to bury the WWE. Austin truly was the toughest SOB in the WWE. He'd stomp a mud hole in you, stun you, and then drink a beer right in your face. This guy was just entertainment personified. The crowd absolutely loved him, rose to their feet every time he came in. He got the biggest pops from the crowd, the biggest chants. This guy was really loved back in the day. You got to see it to believe it. And at number 11, I've got WCW's Goldberg. And as you can see there, he's a big unit, 6 foot 4 inches, 270 pounds. Had that massive spear and that jackhammer, of course, as his finisher. And when this guy broke onto the scene, some were comparing him to Steve Austin. Of course, they may have looked similar with the bald head and ring gear, etc., but really, they were nothing alike apart from that. Both men had their own distinctive ways and their own distinctive styles, that's for sure. And Goldberg was an absolute force of destruction in the ring, running over opponents and accruing a huge win streak. And he would remain undefeated in WCW until Starrcade 98 when he was beaten by Kevin Nash. But Goldberg was just an absolute phenom in WCW, and he too was very popular in his day. bringing the crowds to their feet and just getting huge reaction from the crowd. They loved him. That's Goldberg. From this guy's ring entrance to his awesome crazy promos to his really cool finisher of the gorilla press slam and splash, this guy had it all. The band's tied around his arm, and when he beat Hogan in that now infamous match at WrestleMania 6, this guy was a huge fan favourite. They got off their seat and cheered for him every time. This guy was really loved. Of course, has now sadly passed away, but that's my number 10, the Ultimate Warrior. And in at number 9, we have Eddie Guerrero, another member on this list who has passed away. Of course, Eddie passed away far too young, only 38 years old. I first started watching Eddie Guerrero back in the mid to late 90s with the work he did in WCW. He was really awesome as a cruiserweight champion. And of course, he went on to the WWE to become a huge star there as well, becoming a WWE champion. Of course, defeating Brock Lesnar in that mega match that they had at No Way Out in 2004. Check that one out if you haven't already. But this guy could do it all. He was an awesome face. He was an awesome heel as well. He could do both. And a really, really talented in-ring performer. His matches were always good to watch. He always threw a lot into his matches and punched well above his weight. That's Eddie Guerrero, my number 9. And coming in at number 8 on the list, we've got Kevin Nash, the former leader of the Wolfpack. Of course, before joining WCW in 1996, Kevin Nash was obviously fighting under the name Diesel in the WWE with great success, but I really loved his time in the NWO and in the Wolfpack when he was in the WCW. That's really where he and Scott Hall, of course, gained more notoriety than they ever had in WWE, although they were very successful in WWE. But when they come to the WCW and started up the NWO with Hogan, they just blew it into the stratosphere. So that's my number 8, Kevin Nash, an awesome big man. And at number 7, we have Kevin Nash's NWO partner, it's Scott Hall. Again, he had great success as Razor Ramon in the WWE, a guy who actually never became heavyweight champion of the world, believe it or not. I can't believe he didn't. He should have at least got that belt in the WCW. But a really good in-ring performer, a big guy, obviously 6 foot 7 inches, 280 pounds, an awesome finisher with the outsider's edge. And Hall and Nash and Six-Pack, of course, were awesome as the Wolfpack in WCW. And when Scott Hall made that initial promo he did when he burst on in the middle of a match back in 96 in the WCW and said, "You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here," and it just took the whole wrestling world by storm, and that was a really awesome time to watch pro wrestling. Scott Hall at number 7. Okay, and at number 6 we have Chris Benoit. Yes, I know what the guy has been accused of, and that is the most horrific thing ever. There is nothing more horrific than that. And really, for someone who does that sort of thing, should not be on any list at all. But I'm just going purely by what he did in the ring. I love watching this guy back in the late 90s and the work that he did in WWE. He really bulked up and became a huge star in the WWE as well, and just pushed his career forward. Chris Benoit was just one of the best technical wrestlers ever. And his in-ring wrestling, remember him for that. His matches were always good to watch. Another guy that punched well above his weight. A very unfortunate end, to say the least, of course. We all know what happened in 2007. But I'm not going to go into that side of things in this video. I'm just looking at him as a professional wrestler, and inside the ring, he was one of the best. Now, my number 5 is CM Punk. This guy did a lot of really cool stuff in the WWE. Some say maybe he pushed it a bit too far in the end and was trying to get too much stuff going his way. There's always two sides to a story. Who screwed who over? Did the WWE really screw over Punk, or did Punk screw over himself? I'm sure there's elements of truth to both sides. But once he got going in the WWE and dropped those pipe bombs, he was really awesome to watch and really brought some life to the WWE when it had really become too PG and too stale. A really awesome in-ring performer as well. His matches were always good to watch. Especially check out that match between him and John Cena at Money in the Bank at 2011. That match just had everything. So he's my number 5. He also has a really hot wife as well, of course, with AJ Lee. That's CM Punk. And would he ever return to the WWE? Well, I won't even start that conversation because they just go down so many rabbit holes. We'd all love to see it, but it certainly doesn't look like it's going to happen at this stage. But as they say, you never say never in the world of professional wrestling. Okay, and at number 4, it's the Macho Man Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, this guy was just totally awesome. One of my favourites growing up. As I say, growing up in the late 80s, watching Hogan and The Warrior and Randy Savage. I mean, he was just at his peak there. Now, he wasn't a huge guy, but he was totally awesome. Again, another awesome talker and another awesome promo. A great mic guy out of the ring and a really, really good wrestler in the ring. That finish, that flying elbow drop, so iconic. Really, really cool move. Team with Hogan as the Mega Powers. Miss Elizabeth, of course, as his manager. And again, Randy Savage, another pro wrestler that passed away far too young. But he's at number 4 on my list and one of my favourite wrestlers of all time. Okay, guys, and now it's a 3-way tie for the number 1 spot. There's no way I can separate these guys. I've thought about it, and there's no way I can. That's Shawn Michaels, The Stinger, and of course, Hulk Hogan. These are my 3 favourite wrestlers of all time, and I will go into those reasons for each of these guys right now. So Shawn Michaels, what more can you say about this guy? He is the icon, he is the showstopper, he is Mr. WrestleMania. He really held the weight of the company on his back in those mid-90s, of course along with others as well. But this guy was a champ, he was carrying the company. But the list of legendary matches that this guy has had back in those mid-90s, and of course after he came back in return from his back injury back in those early 2000s, just so many legendary matches that Shawn Michaels has had. Again, a smaller guy, he's not the biggest guy in the world. The awesome finisher, of course, the classic Sweet Chin Music. Involved in the big controversy, of course, back in 1997 at the Survivor Series with the Montreal Screwjob and the big feud that he had with Bret Hart back then. But this guy always put 120% into each of his matches, really punched above his weight. Watch the series of matches that he's had with The Undertaker over the years. Whether you want to look at Bad Blood from 1997, or when he fought The Taker at the Royal Rumble 1998, or fast forwarding to WrestleMania 25 and WrestleMania 26, and those 2 awesome matches he had with The Undertaker then. Of course, former leader of D-Generation X, a huge fan favourite, and even came back for a match in 2018 at WWE's Crown Jewel, and he still even performed pretty well there. Looked a bit funny with the bald head, I gotta say it, but I won't hold that against him. An absolute classic, Shawn Michaels. And of course now the enigmatic warrior, it's Sting, the man with the black and white face paint. Now, I didn't watch so much of Sting when he was the Surfer Sting. I was watching more WWE at that time, but really got into him when he was facing the NWO back in 96, 97, etc., when he was coming down from the rafters and all that stuff. I think that's when everybody really fell in love with Sting. Have since gone back and obviously watched a lot of his stuff as Surfer Sting, and he was a really cool character then too. A really good athlete and energetic wrestler inside the ring, and a really great personality out of it as well. Of course, spent a lot of time in TNA, used up his gas tank there, you might say, when some people think that maybe he should have come to WWE and had a lot of dream matches there, but we all know the story there. It just wasn't going to happen. He just didn't trust what was going to happen with his character at the time, so he stayed in TNA. He did a lot of good stuff there as well, but I personally most fondly remember Sting for his time when he was battling the NWO, as I say, in those mid to late 90s, with the black and white face paint, coming down from the rafters. Damn, such an awesome time to watch professional wrestling. Sting was just totally awesome back then. And it was also really good to see him in the WWE when he did come. Some standout moments there, definitely. His debut in the Survivor Series, damn, that gave you chills. That was so awesome. And even though he lost the match at WrestleMania 31 against Triple H, which he shouldn't have, but never mind, he still performed really well in that match. A really good match to go back and watch over. Great performance by Sting at WrestleMania. And of course we had the very unfortunate end to his career when he fought Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. Very hard match to go back and watch. The first 3 quarters are fine, but that end part, very hard for us Sting fans to go back and watch that part again. For me anyway, just a real tragic end. We never did get to see the Sting Undertaker match, but not to worry. Sting at number 1 on my list. And the third guy, of course, sharing this list as my number one favourite wrestler of all time is none other than Hulk Hogan. Damn, he was just so awesome and just so powerful and iconic and such a crowd favourite back in those mid to late 80s and early 90s in the WWE. Of course, went to WCW, became Hollywood Hogan, became a huge star, reinvented himself all over again. And even though he was playing a heel, he was just huge at that time. Really helped the NWO get off the ground. And even came back and had a stint in the WWE in those early to mid 2000s, and he was just awesome there as well. The fact that he could just still go. But of course, Hogan is most well known for his time in the WWE. I mean, Hogan was the WWE. Hogan was professional wrestling. Done a lot of movies as well himself. A huge personality inside and outside of the ring. And probably the most well-known professional wrestler of all time. I mean, everybody knows that name, Hulk Hogan. So there you go, guys. That's my list of my top 15 wrestlers of all time. Is there anyone familiar on that list that is one of your favourite wrestlers as well, possibly? List your guys' comments below, and we will catch you in the next video. Thanks heaps, guys, for tuning into the video. Be sure to drop a scorpion death drop on that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome pro wrestling action from the WWE, the WCW, and much more.